we gave away about 60 to 80 grand a month in free clothing and memberships.
Oh, at least. Yeah, it was crazy.
At least, but everybody wore it. I mean, everybody.
How much were you making?
It.
What did that Gold's Gym store make like a month?
I write in my book that in the summer we were grossing $160,000.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. And John Romano and I are back for another edition of Rips and Rants. John, I got to tell you, this was supposed to be a special show. It's going to still be special because we have another special guest, but we were supposed to be joined by Calum Muscle. And Calum Muscle had to postpone because he had something pop up at the last minute. So he's going to be joining us on Friday's show, which will probably air next Monday, or possibly Friday if we get a chance.
Which unfortunately I'm not going to be here for because I'm going to Peru.
Oh, that's right. You're leaving for Peru. Oh, so I'm going to have to cancel them. I didn't even realize that. You forgot about that because I told you last night and you said...
Well, I still haven't. Well, because I don't pay attention to these trips until the last minute because...
You're exactly like me. Your wife probably loves the fact that you do that too, I'm sure.
She hates it because it's the exact opposite. She's been stressing about it for 2 weeks now. So it's like, I'm not going to add to that. I got to bring 3 pairs of jeans, 4 shirts, some underwear, and that's it. And I'm done. I'm wearing the shoe. I'm wearing the shoes I'm taking. So,
I envy you, John, because you know what? You don't have rituals like I do. I have like 1,000 things that I need to do in the morning and contact lenses and all kinds of ritual pills I got to take and vitamins and shots and, glutathione. And I got so many little rituals. And as I'm getting older, the rituals become longer and longer and longer in the morning that I have to actually wake up 15 minutes earlier now to get them all done, to be honest with you, or I can't get done fast enough in the morning.
Well, I think the first 8 years of my adulthood that I spent on the lam made me, gave me kind of like a gypsy, mentality that I can pick up and go, anytime. I mean, I didn't move into a house I owned until I owned other real estate, but I never lived in them. But I always rented because I had to pick up and go. But I didn't move into a house I owned until I was like 50.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I was always gypsy-esque, mobile. Got to be able to pick up and go.
You know what, John? Even when I was in jail for 5 months, I had rituals in the morning. Like which you think you wouldn't have any, but I find a way to have rituals because I don't know if that maybe just makes it focuses me or the first thing in the morning. But I have rituals in the morning, and I have rituals, before bed that I have to do. And then there's a few random rituals during the day. Like I got to take my fiber lies twice a day. I got to take my vitamins twice a day. And if I don't get that stuff done, I'm like, it bothers me. Like it's like a neurotic obsession I have almost to do this stuff.
I definitely have my things I got to do, but I forget them a lot. Like I constantly forget to take my.
What do you do? Like when you wake up in the morning? How do you wash your face?
What do you mean how?
You just take whatever soap's available and you wash your face, right?
Brush my teeth and throw water on my face.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to have my electric toothbrush. I have to have the certain toothpaste I have to have the mouthwash I do use. I got to shave every single day because I don't think my face feels like, once in a while I'll skip it. Usually I shave every single time, and I have a special razor for my face. And then I have another one that I do use for my neck. Then I have a third one I use for my body. And I have a special shampoo that's supposed to take out. It's like fizzes a little bit. It's supposed to open up the hair follicles so the hair grows better. I got so many little silly things that I'm probably even forgetting, I got a toe that's been bothering. I got to tape the toe with one Band-Aid to the other Band-Aid. I got to switch the Band-Aids every time I take a shower because then they get wet, I got a certain brush I have to use. So when I travel, I have to pack all this shit up with me.
God, what a nightmare.
Now, the way I got away with it, because I used to travel every weekend when we were,
Right.
we were in the height of our school, is I had 2 sets of everything. So everything was packed in the suitcase. All I had to do was put my clothes in there. And a lot of times I had doubles of my clothes too. So literally I didn't have to change. I didn't have to pack anything, from the night before, which is good if you're traveling a lot to have a packed bag at all times.
When I was going back and forth to Mexico a lot when we first moved back here, I never brought any luggage because I had all my shit in my condo. I had everything, clothes, toiletries, everything, and the same here. So I would just get on the plane.
That's amazing. Yeah, the only person who's better than that, who the best traveler I know is our friend Frank Matassa.
Yeah, well, he sends everything. He sends
FedExes everything. Yeah, so
FedEx.
It's waiting there for him when he gets there in boxes and stuff.
The box is waiting for him at the whole
He's got cajole, right?
He's got a lot of money. Yeah, but no, I used to get problems coming back because I would go for I'd come back, I don't know, for a week or something. I have no luggage. So customs were like, what do you mean you have no luggage? So they immediately think I'm like, I'm a diversion, So I'd always jacking me up at the border because I had no luggage. I almost started bringing luggage so they'd leave me alone,
Yeah, right.
But
then when I leave, so finally I get out of the bathroom, in the morning. My shower's done and I get dressed. I have to put the hair gel in, whatever, to hold the 3 hair strands I have down, so it doesn't stick up in the air like. You ever see these like lunatics that their hair is like blowing in the wind because it's really
usually.
I can't do that. Then I got to come out. I got to do my glutathione shot. I got to do if I'm doing my BPC 157 healing peptide for my ankle, still I'm using that. Then I have to take the romaine lettuce and I have to feed the tortoises outside. I got to give blood worms to the turtles. My discus fish have to get. This is just the stuff in my garage. All the other animals are all the way over on the other building. But then I got to unload the dishwasher. I got to, if the kids want something to eat that I can actually make, and my wife will let me actually, make them for them, then I'll make them something. So it's like the rituals are unbelievable. That's why when I go away, which I haven't done in a while, it's like almost like I got to take my mini rituals with me, but there's not quite as many rituals when you go away. So it is kind of like a little bit of a vacation. So.
The only thing I'm ritualistic over is when I ride motorcycles. I begin the ride. It's always a ritual. I check the tire pressure. I check everything. Make sure it all works. I got this little checklist I go through because, I forgot who it was who told me about accidents. They said as soon as you lose respect for the vehicle is when you get into trouble. Okay, right. So. And that's totally true. And so I have a very high degree of respect for the bikes I ride, especially the really powerful ones because they're freaking crazy. And I do because I want to stay alive and ride more, But those rituals help you because bad tire pressure is a killer, out at high speeds out on the road. So, it's nice to go through those things. But I don't find myself like superstitious though over the rituals. Like if I don't do it, something bad's gonna happen. Are you like that? Are you like superstitious over it, or is it?
It just annoys me because I like to get everything done. It's like it's more. Yeah, it's not like I'll get like OCD and start like turning into Rain Man or anything like that. I just want to know that I did everything I could possibly do right for the day. It's like with bodybuilding. I would never miss a meal. It was so like it would drive me nuts if I thought I was going to miss a meal because then I said, what, I left the door open. I'm not going to gain as much muscle this week, or I'm not going to lose as much fat this week because I didn't do it perfectly. At least in my mind, whatever perfect happened to be defined as at that moment in my life's time. Now it's like I got to do all my little health rituals because I'm afraid I'm going to die or get some like terminal illness. And the problem is
Well, I do think part of that ritualism does come from bodybuilding because there's so many things you got to do that if you, and we're always of the mentality, if I skipped one, I'm going to fuck up everything, and that's why I lost the show because I didn't take growth that one morning, So, I mean, we become extremely, adherent to our schedules.
The most validating thing though you can get is when you go for blood work and your blood work comes back good, and all right, you know what, my cholesterol is good, my kidney function is good, and my blood pressure is good, my blood sugar is good. All right, you know what, I'm doing it right. Now, granted, there's going to be things that are going to be high and lows that we know just come with that are bullshit, like the liver enzymes don't mean anything because that's from bodybuilding, that's from working out, or your high red. People get freaked out because these doctors freak out about high red blood cells, hematocrit. I tell people, cyclists put extra blood into their bloodstream. They blood dope, or they use EPO. They can't use EPO now because they test them, but they blood dope purposely to get more red blood cells, which increases hematocrit and hemoglobin levels, so they can carry oxygen better. And there's no cyclists dying, of heart attacks.
Oh, that's not true. They do die.
Well, what happens is they get very dehydrated too. So, but
their blood gets the consistency of yogurt. I mean, if it gets high,
it doesn't. Well, but it's most of the time it's because they're not hydrated because they're dehydrating on the rides. But there's very few cyclists that you find healing over, from heart attacks and stuff like that, or blood clots. And they have the thickest blood of all those guys.
Yeah, well, because they dope it up. But I did a series of features for MD a long time ago on cycling and the Tour de France, and all that, and the degree to which drugs are used, in cycling makes bodybuilding look like a kindergarten class. Let me tell you.
They really use high dosages of anything, but they can't because they get tested. So I think they're using minimal dosages of a lot of different drugs. Don't get me wrong, but small amounts. Like, I mean, Victor Conti told me the way because I always ask him, how do these cyclists beat these Tour de France drug tests? They get tested every day after they get off the bike. He's like, well, and we've gone through this before. He's like, they get off the bike, they pee in a cup. As soon as they're done with giving the urine sample, they slap a testosterone patch on themselves, and they wear it all the rest of the day through the night. They sleep with it. It helps them recover because the testosterone's high, and then they pull it off in the morning. They ride the whole day, 6 hours, whatever it is. By the time they get off the bike, there's nothing left in their system anymore.
Right.
And so they constantly beat the test that way. So what's a testosterone patch? That's not a lot of testosterone. And probably if they're doing growth hormone, it was probably small amounts too, because excessive amounts holds water, and they don't want to be carrying around extra water.
But it does help though.
Oh, it absolutely, of course it does. Yeah. But I'm saying they're using relatively small amounts compared to what bodybuilders would use. Now remember we talked about I think we talked about it on After Hours. They had these games that are coming up. They're going to be untested. What are they calling them? The enhanced games.
Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, I wonder how much faster the cyclists will be, or the runners for that matter, with doping to the max. They might be worse,
It's always been like a kind of fantasy I've had as a coach, that if I could pick, I kind of got to do this with boxers, but not to the degree I wanted to do it with like cyclists or football players or track players, utilizing everything that we know, every single solitary performance enhancement trick in the book, and employ it all and see what you can come up with. I think it would be incredibly fascinating to take every bit of technology, legal and not, apply it to the most nth degree and see what you get, and what kind of super athlete you can make, and what's wrong with doing that, Bodybuilders technically really are the only ones that actually do that because we don't have any limits.
Right. Bigger is better. But like you said, you could take too much in certain sports and it could actually hinder your performance because you're holding too much weight, Like cycling, Lance Armstrong, when I read his books, he was always like a pretty big, beefy, muscular guy. And that's why he used to win all these like short races and sprints and stuff like that. And then he got cancer and he lost a lot of weight. And when he came back, he realized he was eating too much food and he had a new coach. And he was like 15 pounds lighter. And that was why he was so much better at these endurance events where he was climbing mountains and stuff like that, because he weighed less. He said, I was carrying less, weight. There's a weight, I guess there's a formula you can figure out how much power you can put out given your weight versus your, strength and that kind of thing. And weight plays a big factor, especially when you're hill climbing, to have that extra weight, it doesn't help.
I've been witnessing this firsthand because, I used to walk around, pretty much in the 218 to 220 range. Now I'm like, 175, 180.
Right.
So a lot of weight is gone. And now I've been doing the 75 hard. One of my workouts has to be outside, and I enjoy walking, the hills and everything around here. Cause other than that, I mean, it's hard to
talking about neurotic rituals you've had since you started that whole thing. Yeah.
It's a challenge. I can't miss, So I got a ruck to make the walking harder, and I got a 25-pound plate in the ruck. God. All right.
It's crazy.
Which is about half of what I've lost. Okay. Right. So I lost about 50 pounds. I'm thinking to myself, I'm lugging this 25-pound plate around in my backpack. Walking up hills, it's difficult. I mean, I'm thinking I was carrying around twice as much as this. Now you were carrying around.
It was distributed better though too when you wear
it. I'll distribute the other, on my legs, the other 25. Okay, still 25 that's on my back would have been indicative of what was all over my upper body, right? So it's a radical change to what you're doing. You 100, over 100? How many pounds did you lose?
Oh, I'm 200 now, so figure out I'm 100 pounds lighter muscle-wise.
I imagine you strapping a 100-pound dumbbell on your back and walking.
Couldn't do it. I was down to like about $182 in the hospital, when I had the cardiac surgery, and it was a lot easier to walk, but I felt weaker. So. I feel much stronger now at 200. So there's like a diminishing returns. Like you have to find the sweet spot for you. And at every age, there's a different sweet spot. Mm-hmm. I think at my age here, I think the sweet spot is about 200, like 2 to 210. But I think if I go higher than that, I might start, because I find I'll start snoring a little bit and maybe raise my blood pressure a little bit. If I go under 200, I kind of look like emaciated too. I mean, I don't feel as strong. You know what I mean? Just to do daily things. So I me, I'm an extremist. So I'll go up and down depending on whatever mood I'm in. If I think my health is not doing well, I'll drop weight. And that kind of things. Right. But this is a good. I was off HRT for 7 years. So when I had my kids. So that's the reason why my weight was able to go low. Now that I'm on a little bit of HRT, I'm only on about 75 milligrams a week. Because I have a high, that raises me up to, about 850 total testosterone. I feel good at that, and I don't need to go higher. When I go higher, I start retaining a little fluid. I notice that, and it's not a good weight. It's just crap weight. So
I just cut my test dose in half because I was at 1850, so
it's way too high.
Way too high.
Yeah. I want to bring on our guest.
Good.
Today. It's not Cali Muscle. He'll have to wait. And
but he knows Cali Muscle.
He knows Cali Muscle. He knows everything.
Cali Muscle probably stayed in his house.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you this: there's a lot of guys in our industry who've stayed in Ed's house, and Jay Cutler included.
Yeah.
But Ed Connors, who we've had on the show, I'm going to bring him on in a second. Well, let's just bring him in.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed, what's up?
Hello, Dave and John.
Hey, Ed.
Ed Connors is one of the 3 muscleteers, and that's the name of his book too, that started the Gold's Gym franchise and Gold's Gym Venice there. That was the original gym they purchased, and then they started the franchise, and the rest is history. And Ed wrote a book about all the stories related to that. I read the book. It's a great book. And now you have an audio book out. And I think, Ed, I think is a brilliant idea that you came out with an audio book with you actually reading the book. And I actually was listening to a little excerpt from it. The advantage of you reading it is that no one reads books anymore. It's right. Sad. It's a sad testament. Even my son, he's supposed to read a couple books in school like a week. It's like pulling nails. Kids do not know how to sit down and read a book anymore. They want to listen to it. And I hear it's doing very well on Amazon.
I won't know the numbers until the first week of September, but almost every day the past 4 weeks, it's been #1 in 3 different categories on
Wow.
Amazon.
That's
That's
crazy.
awesome.
Now,
Congratulations.
now how do people find out about, like, why do you think it went from being not as popular when it was in book form and now it's in audio form? How do people even know it, that it's there?
Well, I've done my best to promote it on social media, Instagram and Facebook. So
Yeah.
not the publisher. The publisher hasn't done anything. I mean, that's not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything bad about them. It's that's not their job. And
Right.
so I promoted it on social media, and frankly, it's been amazing response. I've had many. When I was at the Olympia with my booth trying to promote my book, you guys would appreciate this because Craig Goliath, but
Yes.
he was a house guest, and I said, Craig, have you bought my book yet? He says, no, I don't read. And
My case in point here.
so I'm really not surprised. I actually wanted to do the audio book very early on, but the publisher was reluctant. And frankly, probably good. We waited a year because during the past year, when I've been bored, I've gone back into my book and rewritten parts and added things.
Oh, good.
And so it's 5,000 words more than my book.
I didn't know that. Now I have to listen to it because now I'm just going to get news stories. What did you add in?
And I think you'll appreciate some of the humanity, me reading it, where I sort of chuckle or I try to imitate Joe Weider, just fun parts where even though I've read this thing hundreds of times, it's still fun, or it makes me laugh. So no, I really I enjoyed it. It was a whole new experience. It took me 8 days to read 75,000 words.
Wow. So give us like some anecdotes, maybe some stuff you added that we didn't know about, and tell us why you added that part to the book.
Well, I was talking a little bit about the celebrities at Gold's Gym Venice, and I'm not one of these people that recognize stars very easily. And so at one point I mentioned—
You just create the stars, yeah. You just create
right. But I was in the lobby of the gym with somebody and they said, oh, there's 50 Cent. And I looked down at my feet. I had no idea who this rap star was. And then another time, Derek Barton, who handled our PR, came over to me and said, Ed, this is Ed. And Derek was aware of my shortcomings. And he said, Ed, this is Ed O'Neill. He's married with children. And I had no idea. And I just said, I deadpanned, oh, how many kids do you have?
Oh, no. Al Bundy. Come on.
Al Bundy.
So there were, I mean, he thought it was making a joke, but
Right.
I've never seen the show.
Who was the most popular celebrity that showed up at Gold's Venice?
Well, it was definitely Jimmy Kahn.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, Lee Priest.
Richard Dreyfuss was there every day. Lyle Alzado was there every day.
Sure.
And,
Bruce Jenner, when he was Bruce.
Yes.
Well, I mentioned Bruce in my book.
Kareem.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about Kahn was that he would really try to help members. I mean, all the celebrities were friendly, but Jimmy went out of his way to help members with whatever he could do. Like, well, Lee Priest, I think he was a big fan of Lee Priest.
Yeah.
And others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lee was so enamored that Jimmy Kahn was like, would stop him on the street and like a little kid and say, "Oh right. Shit, it's Lee Priest."
But what's great is that as the author, being the voice of your book on audio is a real plus, because when you write, I mean, I know this because this is what I do. You have a certain flavor in your head about how this is sounding and what inflections you want to use and what anecdotes will make you, like Ed said, it'll make you chuckle, will make you, groan, or, imitating Joe Weider. These are all things that only the author knows because you created it. So to have the actual author read the book, that's gold right there. So that's a huge, huge plus.
One thing I learned too was that actually reading a manuscript versus speaking it, narrating it is quite different. So I add lib at parts, or I loosen up, because the spoken word is different than the written word. So that was something I had not anticipated, and that was something new to deal with. But it was quite a, it was a new experience, and I'm thankful for it. And it, it, it ended up being good. I did have a younger person read John Cena's foreword. I didn't think I should read that, and I reached out to John to read it, but he was in London, and just the timing wasn't right.
Can't you go back and always edit it and upload the new one?
I mean, that's the beauty of audio.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah.
when it first came out, I was horrified because 2 chapters were repeated and 1 was deleted. So we quickly fixed that, and it's amazing. Every time you basically, reload your audio book, your audio file, it's new. It's whatever's current. So you can update that thing all the time. It's amazing.
What if you download? Let's say I download your book to read, your audio book, and then you make an amendment to it. Will that download the new one to my Kindle or wherever I?
As long as you turn off your Kindle or phone, your audiobook, and then restart again, it's corrected.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
It
tells you how many audiobooks I've listened to, John, in the last 0.
I haven't listened to any.
No,
I actually read. I read.
Yeah, but you know what, John? I like when I'm driving around town or I'm at the gym, if I could just put it on my headset. Not that I'm against reading, but it's a lot easier. I can get 2 things done at the same time. I can work out and listen to Ed tell stories from Gold's Gym Venice days,
I rarely ever drive a 4-wheeled vehicle, so
that's true.
I used to listen to audiobooks in the car, but driving has gotten so dangerous, really.
Yeah.
You can't even be that, distracted.
That's true.
I have a list at the back of my book how many house guests have died, and it's now at 62.
Wow, really?
62 out of 535.
Wow.
And most of them have died in traffic accidents. In fact, 1 died just about 3 weeks ago. And all single car accidents, where driving late at night, probably falling asleep at the wheel.
Right.
So I can't emphasize enough the dangers of driving or being distracted. You've got to get off your phone and not multitask.
Yeah, or at least don't text while you're driving. That's probably the most dangerous thing.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Ed, where in the world are you right now?
Well, you can see by my University of Texas shirt, I'm in Austin.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, what's the longest you stay in one place? Because you're always on the move.
About 1.5 years, I guess. A year. I don't care where I live. I'm working on a new gym project, as you know, Dave.
Yeah.
And it requires me right now to be here in Austin, so I'll be here as long as I need to be.
When is that going to come to fruition, you think?
I don't know. I'm closest I've ever been. I'll send both you gentlemen a pitch deck. But,
absolutely.
The founder of Whole Foods, John Mackey, wants to start a new gym chain with restaurants, and
wow.
I'm trying to convince him that this is the route to go, especially going into shared office environments.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
As you know, I mean, I allude to this in the book, but it's really back to the future with gyms. Change is coming. Change is the one constant, but it's coming even faster because of COVID. And now we're back to where gyms were 30 years ago. I've been asked to be a consultant on several gyms, and I say you can't be over 10,000 square feet anymore if you're going to do this kind of personal training gym. The big box gyms are in trouble. 24 hours cut back their hours, closed a third of their clubs. LA Fitness apparently is not going to renew a lot of their leases. The Gold's Gym, a lot of them are just too big. And the baby boomers are not coming back in the same number, and that's enough to affect the gym business very much. So, people think you can build a box like, LA Fitness does, or 24-hour, and it can last, forever. But it has a finite life.
Ed, I give the analogy to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
The hotels are incredible. One of my favorite hotels of all time there was always the Mirage Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I went recently, It's still beautiful, but yet it's like everyone thinks it's antiquated, and they're
Right.
going to tear it down and they're going to put a new one up there, and it doesn't need to be replaced, but
Right.
it does because like you said, people get bored.
Yeah.
But I'm of the opposite. I think you can, as a business, I think you're right. You can make more money in small gyms, personal training gyms. But when I look at a gym, like, have you seen this gym in Benai's gym in Dubai here?
I have seen it. Yeah.
I mean, this thing is insane. John, you've seen this
Yeah.
tour, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, this gym is like a city inside. This is what I would love to see someone open up here in the United States.
The problem here in the United States is that rent is so expensive,
Right.
and you need thousands and tens of thousands of square feet to pull all this off, which you're going to spend a crap ton of money improving. And with what, a 10-year lease, a 5-year lease? Unless
you
you
gotta
own the building,
You got to own the building. Yeah.
You got to own the building. Unless you
Dave-
own the building, that'll never fly here.
Dave, that gym is probably, it must be oil money, right? I mean, there's nothing crazy with oil money.
I don't think Benai is an oil guy, though. I don't know where he gets the money from.
I'll bet the ultimate source is oil, but
Yeah.
no, but John, the one thing I'm seeing though, and the people I've been advising on gyms, we're also, the rents are dropping. It's almost back to the future with the rents.
Really?
Yeah, I'm seeing, $1 a square foot a month in a lot of places in the U.S.
Wow.
And even below that. So no, commercial real estate's hurting. You've probably seen the stories where tenants who were closed down during COVID are now not paying rent, and some big landlords are in trouble, and the ones that don't have the backing of the banks are going to be in trouble. They're going to default on their loans.
Mm-hmm.
Who did I just realize Reed gave back their building to the landlord? The big mall in San Francisco, the Westfield Mall. They just they gave the keys back to the bank, I think.
Wow.
Well, what happened during COVID too is a lot of places got used to having remote employees, and there's big office concerns here that are empty now because the majority of their workforce didn't go back to work. They're still working from home.
Right.
So I guess I can see the lull in commercial prices.
Well, but that's also another negative effect on the gyms. But COVID had a different effect depending on where you were. The gyms in Florida, I think, were only closed for 4 months. The gyms in California were closed for over 2 years. So that's an enormous economic difference.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Ed. Do you think there could ever be another Gold's Venice? Like, can someone manage to open a gym that would be that popular and be an attraction to that many people that it can have that effect? Or is that just something that will never happen again?
Well, no, it's because the demographics have changed. The people like you from the 80s and 90s no longer exist. Millennials and Gen Z are different. It's a whole, they respect you for what you know, but they don't want to train or eat like you do to look like you.
Right.
So no, the era, it's gone. That's one reason I wanted to write the book, because people need to understand that it's a different world. It's change. The first part of my book is on the fitness industry and how it's evolved, and the second part is on my house guest. The third part's on the evolution of Gold's Gym. But it was a different kind of. I approach. I still kind of recruit people for the WWE Training Center in Orlando, and I can see it even with the people I talk to about getting into professional wrestling. The millennials or Gen Z, they have they're not like the people I approached, in the 80s and 90s, like a John Cena or Jim Hellwig Warrior. They're totally different. I can't, I'm not.
From that house now, Ed, people can be superstars from their basement, if they can come up with zany enough content for their YouTube and social media channels.
I even say that in my book. I said back in the 80s or early 90s, you had to go to Gold's Gym Venice to get seen, but now you can do it from your home on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. It's a whole different world. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally changed. I mean, but think about it. Again, 55 years ago, Arnold Schwarzenegger had to go from Graz, Austria, to Venice, California, to get a workout,
Yeah.
and that's
Yep.
how rare the gyms, the hardcore gyms were. And now it's, I bet within a mile of where either one of you living, there are 6 choices.
Yeah.
Plus, Gold's had a community.
Yeah.
There was a family there.
Right.
And I mean, I remember we used to get done with our workout, go home, take a shower, go back to the gym and hang out outside, see what was going on in the movies, go out to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
Well, I mentioned that in my book because you didn't want to miss anything.
Right.
So you would go to the gym even when you weren't going to go to work out.
I spent every off day at Gold's because I didn't want to miss anything. I mean, and there was always something going on. I mean, there was always somebody from somewhere doing something, No,
it was an incredible ride. It was just amazing. And no, I wish more people could have experienced it, but it was very special. But the people made it special. Back then people would, on a wing and a prayer would go for it. Now, I mean, the millennials are different. And I don't really like what I see, but I'm an old man.
Well, I mean, but for a lot of guys, you just had to get to Gold's. Once you got there, you'll figure out everything else. But you just had to get there.
That was the gift I gave people was a trip to Venice. And back in the day, I mean, from almost all my house guests, the first time on a plane was coming to LA.
Wow.
I'll tell
you why Ed was brilliant, John. Like, everyone thought Ed was this like beneficent guy who was just, having guys stay at his house. But it was really marketing on his part too, because every one of those guys who stayed at his house went to the gym. So it was like Ed was constantly bringing new talent into the gym. And people like, where did this guy come from? Where did this? Well, Ed brought him in. That's where they came from,
Well, we didn't have Arnold. Arnold was loyal to Gold. Arnold never. People think Arnold trained at Gold's Gym. While Pete, Tim, and I owned it, he came by a few times, but he never trained there. Now, of course, he's training there almost every day that he's in LA. But no, we had to create our own stars, our own media. So no, people they didn't seem to understand what I was doing, and it's so obvious to me.
Louis came to Gold's.
I mean, they were all. I mean, again, and I say in my book, for 25 years, I picked the NPC Pro winner every year, except maybe 1 or 2 years. And some years I picked 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That's the absolute truth.
But see, back then we had Gold's Gym Classics, these bodybuilding like Jay Cutler and Paul DeMeo both won the local Gold's Gym contest. So I would hear about them from their owners, and I'd invite them out for photos. And back then, of course, the magazines were lazy or cheap. They didn't send photographers to take photos of these guys in their hometown or even go to the shows in most cases. So the photographers waited for them to come to Venice.
Right.
We were talking about that the other day, and I said, when you would walk into Venice, if no one knew who you were and you looked good, because I remember the first time I came in '94, it was like vultures coming down. Every photographer who hung out there was like, who are you? Who are you?
Who is this guy? Yeah.
Well, see, they wanted to get work. They paid on a per article basis or a cover photo shoot. Yep. So it was they were like vultures.
And Ed in defense of him, which was great for marketing purposes, as soon as one of those photographers would shoot you, you had free access to the Gold's Gym store to take any clothing you wanted, pretty much, to wear during the photo shoot, which was phenomenal too. It was like, holy mackerel, I can't believe this is for real. Anything we want, take whatever you need, and we'll use it in the photo shoot.
See, what I used to do, like when Ken Keene was working behind the desk, is I'd wear a World Gym tank top to the and he'd tell me to take it off, and I got a shirt, and so he tossed me. I got like 10 Gold's tank tops free like that.
We gave away about 60 to 80 grand a month in free clothing and membership.
Oh, at least. It was crazy.
At least, but everybody wore it. I mean, everybody.
How much were you making? What did that Gold's Gym store make like a month?
I write in my book that in the summer we were grossing $160,000 out of that 1,100 square feet.
Wow. that place was, and you guys
Yeah.
sold everything in there. They had food in there, protein
I
bars.
think we pioneered egg whites.
Yep.
Oh, you did? I didn't even know that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the cooler was very important in square footage. And this is back in the day before, the pre-made meals or a lot of energy or the more exotic drinks. It was simpler. It was half the coolers were water. And that, it always amazed me that the same person who wouldn't give you $1 a day for a membership would give you $1 for a bottle of water that cost you 22 cents.
Right. And then fill it right.
Yeah. The total brain
Yeah.
stupidity. Yeah. It's funny, but he had so many people who stayed at his house, and so many people were in that gym. I mean, I know you probably say John Cena's I know that's your pride and joy right there, because it's got to be amazing. Like, you must feel like a father, because you see this guy, he's in all the movies now. I mean, he's a huge megastar, and here it is. You gave him a job behind the front desk. He probably was so happy when he was working there. It's incredible, really.
He was a great employee. Actually, his first job was working for a company that founded by another house guest who moved gym equipment. But
Wow.
John had several. But he was on a mission. He was very focused and just great. We still communicate once a month by text, and he's definitely on a roll now with the movies.
Yeah.
But I was always looking for the next Arnold, and John may come closest. He's actually in the new Terminator movie that's being made.
Oh, he is. I didn't know that. Okay.
So he was in. Did you see him in Barbie?
No, I didn't see the Barbie movie. I couldn't get myself to pay the money to go see it.
Well, it's actually, I thought it was a very enjoyable movie. But he plays a merman in the movie.
Oh my God. He'll play anything. He doesn't have any, like, how like some of these guys only want to play like the action star, and he'll be a goofball. He'll be like the brunt of the joke. He doesn't care. He's very open about that kind of stuff, and I think that's why he's so beloved.
He's aggressively going after movies or parts. I guess he saw Margot Robbie in a restaurant in London and bought her dinner and said, "I'd love to be in your new movie."
Wow.
And got it's a little part in Barbie. He appears twice, no lines, but it was fun. And I mean, actually,
that movie Babylon with her.
I don't know that.
It's with Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie. It's like this look back at like what Hollywood was like in like the 20s. John, you would love this movie. I think Ed, you would love it. It's like total depravity, like what was going on. But it was like, but think about it. The 20s, the 1920s. It's
the flapper.
And it shows the progression of what happened with Hollywood. Over that 10 years, and how they went from silent movie stars to all of a sudden now the silent stars couldn't adapt to the new medium, which was speaking. And it was like a little depressing, but it was like interesting to see the transition and how they did it. I thought it was very well done, very artsy movie.
And who was or were some of or one of or the one of the biggest disappointments that you had? Like the guy that you thought, man, this guy could just go everywhere and didn't. Actually did the opposite.
Well, actually, I kind of allude to it in my book, but I would say Calum Von Moger is one of the biggest disappointments. And I mean, he's a great guy, but I sent him to the WWE tryouts, and he passed the test, which is really hard, and turned him down. He didn't even talk to me before doing it. Which,
really?
But again, he's Australian. He doesn't really understand. But he was such a great actor in the bigger movie on the Joe Weider story. And he's one of the few people I've met in 45 years who looked like a young Arnold. And I think he could have had a phenomenal. I think if he'd gone into WWE, he'd be in movies by now. Because WWE sponsors or produces a lot of those movies.
Yep.
And he was a natural. And I just saw him actually this past weekend here in Austin. He was here for an expo, and he seems to be doing better. He's had I've known him now 9 years. So
I didn't know that.
To see that, when he came over here to try out, he was 22 years old, and it's I wish him the best, but you know, I just can't. It's hard to imagine what might have been had he gone that route. But again, it's you've got to do the work and you've got to love it, and you know, you can open a door, but you know, others have, like Flex Lewis has been a surprise. I mean, I never would have guessed that he would have had the success he's had. I brought him over here in 2004 with Dennis Wolf,
Oh
and
wow.
to see Flex opening a gym and having the life he has, that's you know, that's over the top surprise that I'm so happy for. So yeah, you can only do so much. You know, you try, and sometimes it exceeds your wildest expectations, and other times it's a trend. Like Eric Fromm is probably one of the
Oh,
ones
terrible. Yeah,
uh,
terrible.
I feel terrible about. But again, he wasn't being honest with me. He lied to me. He wasn't being honest with himself, and you can't help somebody if they're that way. Yeah,
Eric could have been a really good bodybuilder too. He
yeah,
had a
he
lot of
was.
potential.
Yeah, very talented guy, and yeah, it's sad. There, you know, you know, it's again, drugs. He died from a fentanyl overdose. Um,
Was it fentanyl? I wasn't sure what the exact cause of death
yeah,
was.
Who was this?
Eric Fromm, you remember he used
Yeah,
to compete with me
yeah.
back in the day?
Yep. I
He
didn't
was a big
realize.
freak. He had
I didn't know
really
he
good
died.
potential.
ironically, he was living in Minneapolis with another former uh, house guest, Benjamin Lohr, who actually now has, I think, 4 gyms in the city and 4 kids. So Benjamin was on a trajectory he wanted to be a pro bodybuilder. And after he saw Eric's death and tragedy, he changed direction. So, you know, there's an example where, you know, that was totally unexpected, and it's wonderful to see. So, uh, yeah, it's Eric. Yeah, Eric, you know, I guess he was just, you know, you just wanted to help the guy and to see, you know, see his dream, and it just didn't work out. So I think of him often. Yeah.
What ultimately spawned the end of the house guest era? What was, how
Well,
did that kind of wind down?
I sold the gym in '04, and I sold my house in Venice and moved to the
Biggest mistake selling that house. Biggest mistake.
yeah, it was well, this is before Airbnb. If Airbnb had existed, I would not have sold it. But
Yes.
so I moved to the desert, but then I wasn't sure where bodybuilding was going, but I had a number of house guests who actually had successful careers in fitness modeling or acting or with their businesses. So I couldn't stop doing what I was doing because I would see talent and I would try and, you know, further it. And you know, I changed a few lives out there, so that was a wonderful time too.
I loved Ed Connor's house on the Venice
The
boardwalk
red
there.
one?
The house where it walked right. What was the address of that one? Right when the one that
20
walked right out onto the boardwalk there.
2311 Oceanfront Walk.
Oh, was that a?
But you know,
That was
homes.
my dream house. I don't know about your house. That was my dream house. If I could have bought that house from Ed, if I had money at the time, and I could have bought that, I would have lived there happily for the rest of my life. I mean, it's the perfect location. It was a gorgeous house. The layout was insane.
But again, the neighborhood has changed. I mean, there are homeless tents in front of that house right now.
Are there really?
Yeah, on the grass knoll in front of the house, and for the first time, I don't feel safe walking Venice Beach
Wow.
at night anymore. So that house got
Shame.
for sale for $8 million.
Is that what you sold it for?
I sold it for $3 million 20 years ago. So now it's for sale for 8. But
Wow.
again, it's a different world down there. It's not the same Venice.
No.
Yeah.
You know, the restaurant scene has changed. You know, it's it's a different. I mean, California has not handled the pandemic well.
I was out there a year and a half ago or so filming a documentary, and Gold's was just a mess. I mean, tents everywhere. You know, the equipment outside, the smell of bum piss. You know, it was just awful. Just terrible.
I was walking around there, and I came back to my apartment, and I smelled something. I thought maybe it was me. Took my shoes off and realized that I had been walking around the sidewalks and stepped in enough feces.
Ah,
Golly, human feces.
nasty.
So, I mean, it's nasty down, all this, you can't, all the sidewalks were covered with tents and debris, and the streets are wall to wall SUVs. So,
Wow.
and, uh, I don't really understand. I tried to get the German owners to move the gym. They actually moved. They opened up a John Reed facility in downtown Santa Monica that was going to be a Gold's Gym.
Right.
But they're bound and determined to keep that place going. But I don't like what I see or hear.
And we talk about failed house guests, and I would have to think that Craig Titus probably fits into that category too. Have you ever contacted him since he's been in prison at all?
I tried. I actually wrote to. He sent me a form to fill out to get visiting privileges, but I've never gotten it back.
Oh, that's weird.
So I visited. I mean, I talk about him in my book, but yeah, we made such great plans for him when he got out of jail in Lompoc that for the second time,
Yeah.
and then he went off to Vegas and got into drugs, and he's written me a number of letters apologizing for his behavior, but that's tragic. I mean, that's probably, I guess, the most tragic situation or story I could recall.
Hey, John, Bertil Fox got out of jail. It is possible that Titus might get out of jail. Bertil brutally killed his girlfriend and the mother and got out of jail. Craig is, we don't even know what happened with.
They didn't know. They didn't know what to do with Bertil. He had committed the most heinous crime ever in the history of St. Kitts.
Yeah.
They didn't even know what to do with him.
How did he get out of jail? I don't understand it.
He was a member of my gym in Reseda, California.
Oh, he was. Okay. Everyone goes back to Ed somehow.
Yeah, that was one of my earliest gyms. That was where Steve Borden, who became Sting, was manager, and that's where Rich Gaspari worked when he came out to California.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
Bertil Fox and Gary Stridham were members, along with
Lee Haney. Lee Haney was a member.
Yeah.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, Corey Everson, Lee Haney, Dr. Hatfield. I mean, he had a
that was really that was the Mecca of the Valley.
Absolutely.
It was very a lot of Matt Mendenhall trained there and people that like to live in the Valley trained there. I remember talking to Bertil Fox, and I was just struck by, I've never met anybody that looked like him that was so oblivious to how to eat, or so. I mean, he was just dumb about food, about
matter,
about food groups. He was, he was different.
And he still looked amazing. That's how genetically gifted he was.
That's probably the best traps in the business.
Was Mendenhall a disappointment to you too? Because I mean, I know you were big on Mendenhall.
No, I mean, not at all. In fact, I mean, that's just one good thing about writing a book. I reconnected with a lot of people, and Matt Mendenhall was one of them. And I think I talked with him maybe a week before he died.
What a terrible story that is.
So, I'm so glad we connected. He was a very private person, and he had kept refusing to connect with me. But then he saw me defending him on Facebook, I think, where somebody had said he had quit. But I said, my God, this guy went for the pro card 6 times.
Right.
He was hardly a quitter.
No.
And so, Matt didn't disappoint me. The judges disappointed me.
Yeah.
I think had he gotten a pro card, bodybuilding would be better off for that.
Yeah. I agree.
But he had to be so good. He had to beat himself essentially. And no, he was a wonderful guy. And he when I talked with him, he wasn't bitter about what life had dealt. Unfortunately, he had fallen down. He said that I was carrying something heavy down the basement stairs, and I fell and broke my back. Oh. And so he was taking painkillers. And in fact, Corey Everson told me after he died, we connected maybe a week after he died, and she said she was so concerned. She had been talking to him on a regular basis, and she was so concerned she was going to fly to Denver to spend time with him because she could tell he was over medicating. Wow. So it's tragic. I mean, he died alone. I think he was maybe dead 4 or 5 days before anyone found him.
An overdose? Was that the official cause?
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it was based on I've
Wow.
learned. Again, I say in my book, I can't honestly say I know anyone whose death was attributed to steroids.
Right.
I said, I,
Yeah.
I say I'm not advocating them, but I honestly, if you look at all these deaths, people get all excited about, it's other things.
Yep.
And I say in my book, in my audio anyway, I think the bodybuilding world wants to believe that what made them killed them. So in other words, they're saying, well, yeah, the guy did a lot of steroids, but eventually, that's why he turned pro or whatever, but that's why he died. No, that's not the case. And anyone I know, G8, too much GH, and certainly synthol. I think synthol has killed at least a half a dozen people I know well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some people would surprise you. I don't want to name, but I mean, Nasser is the most obvious that I can probably talk about. But
Yeah.
certainly for him, it was synthol.
It was really.
You think he killed him because he had kidney failure?
Well, but see, that's just it. The doctor told me in the case that you cannot inject impure fluids and not expect trouble.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
kidney failure would be, I think, related to that. You mean you're injecting really, impure fluids.
Yeah. I think the reason why a lot of these guys have kidney problems is because they have a lot of uncontrolled high blood pressure.
Blood pressure.
And I think nowadays maybe people are a little more observant to that because you can buy an auto cuff in CVS for, $30-40.
Mhm.
Back then, no one tested. I never got my blood pressure tested because I didn't want to know. It was your head in the sand. And I think a lot of guys damage their kidneys.
The only medicine I'm taking now is for blood pressure, and it gets me at 120/70. Just taking this.
Yeah, you got to do it. Probably bodybuilders, they prophylactically take estrogen blockers. Why not prophylactically take a blood pressure medication?
Why not? Yep.
So, Bob Grushkin was convinced that Mendenhall was never his best because he was dating Rachel McLeish, and that she was he couldn't keep himself focused when he was with her.
Well,
buy into that?
I think that, of course, that could probably add some stress in your life, but I think the real problem with him was that he was, he would drink a lot of beer as alcohol, and I think that affected his look enough on stage, to hurt him. I think that's one.
Which is weird. Most bodybuilders don't drink beer. You don't hear that a lot.
But that's something that was common. I mean, he's coming from Ohio, and
right.
Back in those days, beer was a big thing. Now you're right. In fact, one of my former house guests, Matt Cardell, just wrote a book that's on my Facebook page called Dope. It's a good read, and he had an issue with alcohol, which is, other than him and Gunnar Asbo, who I wrote about, the Norwegian I don't know any American bodybuilders that had, pro bodybuilder. Well, I'm now
Kevin Levrone. Kevin Levrone was wasted in every show.
In fact, John, you said that, and I just thought of him. You're right.
But most bodybuilders don't drink alcohol. They're big weed guys with weed, but not alcohol guys.
Yep.
What about Matt Duvall? I mean, that was another tragic. I mean, I was good friends with him at one point, and
Matt's an equally tragic case. And again, I'm sure with him it was a drug overdose.
Yeah.
But what's so stupid is that he got his pro card, and then he calls me up and then says, "Ed, I wanted to get into pro wrestling, but he was too big and for that, and too old, and so he immediately, having gotten something, he then changed his direction, which was a mistake. He should have focused on a pro career, and then when he got into wrestling and wasn't doing well, he decides to open up a gym. So he, again, and that was not a good time to open his kind of gym. So he just made these 180-degree shifts at different key points in his life. But he was a really sweet guy. Just, he wrote beautifully, communicated beautifully. I mean, just a great person, but I don't know what caused him to make these turns that just were so difficult and caused him, I'm sure, to be distressed. And again, you have these issues with needing painkillers. Painkillers is definitely a big deal right now. Of course, they're being laced in everything.
I know, it's scary. Well, Hulk Hogan did an interview. I think he's on with Rogan, and he was talking about, back in the day, they would just talk to the doctors, who were working for, for the organization. They'd be like, the doc, we're in pain, and they would give him like, 30 Percocets and stuff like that, and it was just too easy to get access to that stuff. He said, and it was, everyone, you're always in pain when you're wrestling, he said. So I mean, there's no excuse not to take the pain meds, and that's
and that's why so many wrestlers, I think, have died. And again, it wasn't steroids; it was the painkillers. I think too. Then that's a problem nowadays because people don't want to put up with any pain. So the level of pain that you or I might have been comfortable with, they don't tolerate, and of course that made Percocet go through the roof, and really, I see the lawsuits with the Sackler family and all that going on. But people were over reliant on painkillers. The sad thing now is that people who really need painkillers can't get them easily because they've been
so tightly controlled.
Tightly controlled. But there's a need for them, but they were abused like everything. I mean, they just got out of hand. It's like you get a cold, you have to take something really strong. It just
Hulk Hogan never stay at your house?
No, frankly, I didn't care for him.
Oh, you didn't like him? Why not?
Because I think when he's telling the kids to take their vitamins and say their prayers, he's so high on stuff that in fact, I talk about him in my book because the Gold's Gym people wanted to give him an award, which Pete had already given him one. But his family became one of those celebrity nightmares with all the tragedy with his son.
Oh, I know, his son, yeah.
So no, I just I didn't care for him at all, frankly. I mean, a lot of the rest. I mean, this is why I knew John Cena would be so good because he was so dedicated. Most of the wrestlers were just party animals. I mean, they're all. Again, it's unfortunately that mentality. They think they're going to be young and strong and beautiful forever, and they have a window. And I was on the road with Ultimate Warrior and Sting and Cena at one point, and I would see the way they lived. And Cena would get to the next town early in the morning. The other guys would still be in bed. He'd get meals in. He'd get his training in. He understood what his gimmick was, and he had to take care of it. These other guys were just. I mean, they were
not the Ultimate Warrior into wrestling, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ed, do you think Craig Titus would be alive today if he didn't go to jail?
Boy, that's a good question.
I think he just would have been in jail for something else, John. It would have
been. If he had not gone the criminal route, would he have been had succumbed to?
You make a good point, John. I think I'd have to agree that he probably would be dead.
Possible.
I think so. I don't think he would.
I think Craig was too in love with himself to really do himself in, unless he just got too hooked into the drugs.
Well, he was
into the methamphetamines when I saw him in Vegas, and people like that. Well, you read the story about Calum Von Moger jumping out a second-story window on meth, and those are the kind of crazy things people do with that drug. That I mean, in fact, I must know a half a dozen people who've allegedly committed suicide, but in fact, I think drugs talking that I don't consider that suicide when you jump out I mean, it's tragic, but some great people I've known that similar to Calum who did that. They jumped out of a window and died. And again, I don't think they wanted to kill themselves. It was the drugs.
Right. Think about what Calum Von Moger has been through. This guy, if he can't see the messages from God saying, "We want you alive," I mean, he's jumped out of a second-story window, lived, and he seems to be okay. You remember he was trying to rappel down the side of that mountain, and he tore his, bicep.
Here's a guy whose father is a full-fledged quadriplegic because of a motorcycle accident.
Oh my God!
And when Calum was living in California a while back, he had 5 motorcycles.
Oh my God. Oh,
So,
thanks.
I mean, that's the kind of behavior that it's just, I don't understand. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
again, I've had three house guests die in motorcycle accidents, one right in front of the gym.
Wow.
It's
Uh,
insane.
remember that's that sign that's outside the gym that says, warning.
Bodybuilding crossing.
That's I tried to get a street light there just because of that accident. But
Wow.
That's crazy.
all we could get was a stop sign. But yeah, there was several people were killed. Not only one there at that site, but others were killed. And Frank McGrath totaled my Jaguar in Venice. Craig Titus totaled his car in near my house in Venice.
Wow.
Um,
What,
driving is dangerous. So
what do you think about the death of David Paul? Because that was kind of a little controversial.
Yeah,
Not many people-
honestly, I mean, God bless him. I loved him, and
I did too.
of the two brothers, I would have imagined he would have outlived his brother.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So it shocked me. I had met him again. I try not to have favorites with photographers, but I loved the way David captured the guys outside the gym in different costumes and settings.
Mhm. Yeah.
I visited his studio in East LA. He had a very serious studio, a business going, and I was surprised by it. But yeah, what they were two of those memorable characters. I mentioned them in my book briefly, and
Isn't it odd though, Ed, that David and Peter Paul, the Barbarian brothers, was so popular back in the 80s and 90s, and now you have Logan and Jake Paul, who are like super popular. Imagine these guys if David and Peter would have had social media, how popular they would have been.
Oh,
Because then they wouldn't have had to answer to anyone. They got blacklisted from Hollywood because they were lunatics. But
right.
on social media, you can do whatever you want,
Well, you make an interesting point. I think that's one reason Arnold was such a success is that the producers, the entertainment industry in LA thought bodybuilders were very difficult to deal with. I mean, I think David and Peter Paul, unfortunately, were a couple of the guys who made them think that.
Mhm.
So when Arnold finally started making movies, they were charmed by him. He was so easy to work with, and I mean, he really is an amazing individual. I mean, he's larger than life, in reality. So yeah, but unfortunately, I think David and Peter would have had a more successful career had they been easier to work with. And
Mhm.
or had their own social media where they could have done whatever they wanted on their own
Right.
YouTube channel and stuff like that.
Well, they did whatever they wanted to anyway. They just weren't very
But no one
successful.
knew about it. Imagine if you could have gone on social media and seen these
Yeah.
two. They probably would have had 800 businesses.
Oh, they would have been viral.
They would have lost all the money anyway because they
Yeah.
didn't care about money.
David, but on the other hand, they were dyslexic. So again,
Right.
people who are dyslexic have an awful hard time with social media.
That's me.
Yeah. I don't think David would have had a problem with it, but I just think that they came around the wrong time.
Yeah.
And the book is The Three Muscleteers. You can get it on Amazon. There's an audio book. There's a downloadable book. There's a paper book you can buy. I highly recommend you check it out. And it seems like the downloadable book is better or the audio book because it's constantly being upgraded by you. So I'm going to have to download it, listen to it. Ed, I love hearing the old stories. Thanks for coming on today.
Great to see you both, and stay well and happy. And
absolutely.
I mean,
all right.
If you feel like it, so if you feel there's some great reviews on Amazon, so if you want to add your own, please feel free.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
I definitely will. Check out the book, The Three Muscleteers. Ed Connors, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. All right, that was Ed Connors, and what a great guy.
Yeah, I've known him so long. I just
way longer than I do. I think I met him. I met him in 94, 95.
I must have been. When did I join? I must have joined Gold's.
Ed Connors.
It had to be in either 89 or 90. I mean,
right. Ed Connors contacted me. I'm trying to think. It was before the Junior Nationals or after. It might have been at the Junior Nationals. He came up to me. Obviously, I won the heavyweight class. I was 258. No one was that big in the amateurs at that time.
Right.
I was crazy shredded. And he's like, you want to come out to California? Because I was going to do the USA. I was doing the USA in Denver, Colorado in 2 weeks. He's like, why don't you come out to my place? You can stay at my place in Venice, train the last 2 weeks for your show at Venice Golds. I'm like, how am I going to do it? He's like, here's the keys to my place. He had the keys with him. He handed me the keys and all, he had a little instruction booklet, how to get into the house, how to set the alarm, the codes, all this stuff. I said, well, I got my girlfriend here. He's like, bring her. Don't worry about it. So,
well, he had 2 houses.
Yeah, but this was the house right on
right.
Beach,
so he stayed in the other one, and the other.
He was in this house. He stayed with us. The house was huge. So I don't even know him. I'm like, but I'm like 25 years old. I'm like, what the hell? So he gives me the keys. We call the airlines. We change our flights. We have to drive back the next morning, Sunday morning. We're driving back from Washington, D.C. back to New York because I got to get back because the following morning I got a flight to California. And it's like tons of traffic. And it was so much traffic, a matter of fact, bumper to bumper going back from Washington, that people were just pulling over to the side of the road and just just walking out of their car and just like hanging out in the grass. And it was all bodybuilders, all the guys who were in the show. They had to be like 30 bodybuilders on the side of the road. And everyone was like, hey, high-fiving each other and everything like that.
Because we can't sit in the car for that long.
No, you're right, because it was cramping up and everything like that. And everyone was all pro-tanned up. And it was like one big party. And we got back and I remember washed all our clothes. And then we flew out the next morning to Venice. I rented a car, went right to Ed's house. He gave me the garage door. You had to have that garage door open.
Clicker.
Open the garage door, whatever. Went in, did the whole thing, and I was like, and then seriously, maybe 20 minutes after I was there, I see some guy just walk in the house. Now Ed had warned me it was Titus, and Craig Titus had the keys because he would go up to the roof because he was doing the same show. He would go up to the roof and hand naked because he didn't want to have any tan lines.
Yep.
And so he's like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "Yeah." Oh, and I was like a kind of a fan in the sense of I had never seen. I said, "Oh, Craig Titus, that's kind of cool." We were bullshitting it up a little bit, and that was like the atmosphere of Ed's house. You never knew who was going to walk in. Ed came maybe 2 days later, and he showed up and he was in the house and he would do, all his whatever little things. And, there were all these rules. You had to throw the garbage out. You had to close the door. You had to lock this. And, it was a lot of rules, but it was a gorgeous house. It was amazing, and Ed and I have been friends since that time, in 1995. It's crazy. It's almost 30 years getting close to.
Yeah. I think I was in the 80s when I knew
you
him.
had to have known him way before me. Yeah.
It was mid 80s when I met him. Yeah.
He changed the scope of bodybuilding. I mean, a lot of people don't know the history.
He's one of, if not the most influential benefactors of our entire industry.
Him and Joe Weider.
Yep.
And you heard how many house guests he had. The fact that he actually knows the number is
500 something, yeah. And and the subcategories, the ones that are dead, the ones that are died in a motorcycle accident,
the ones that use too much toilet paper in the house, He used to always know who the toilet paper abusers were. He's like, I said, Ed, why would you measure toilet paper? Because he goes, that's how I know they're eating too much food. Anyway, all right, we're going to wrap up today's episode of Rips and Rants. Guys, if you like the show and you have ideas for topics, put them in the comments below. But John will be out of commission next week, I guess, because he's going to. How long are you going away for?
10 days.
Wow, that's a big vacation.
Yep. I'm going. Well, we're doing the family reunion, the grandmother's birthday, and then we're going to take a side trip to go to Cusco and see Machu Picchu and ruins and all of that shit that I want to see. So I'll have. I'm interested to see how much of it looks like the ruins in Egypt, because
do me a favor. Buy me. I'll even pay back if you want, but buy me one of those little replicas of the Machu Picchu replica. They sell them. They have a gift shop there. Because I have one from the Christ the Redeemer, that's up in Rio de Janeiro, that big statue. Yep. So I always wanted one from Machu Picchu, but I never went there. So
all right, I'll see what I can do.
All right, guys, that's been the stupid things that I like to collect. I just want to say it came from Peru. I don't want to buy one on Amazon that someone made like.
It's either gonna be that or one of those Huichol flutes that like Valentino has under the desk.
I want to be able to pull it out from under my desk and say, I got the ruins of Machu Picchu here.
I got Machu Picchu here.
And if you see any cool boa constrictors, you can grab one of those.
Of course, I'll bring the snake home.
Dave Palumbo and John Romano for another edition of Rips and Rants. We'll see you in 2 weeks.